How about I call this meeting to order? Do we start there? Is that a good place?
Yeah. Go for broke.
Let's do a roll call.
Wait.
Oh, what did I miss?
Sorry. We added a new item. Item number 1 is our virtual meeting information.
I see.
Basically a brief overview. So all of you have been able to access this, which is great. Depending on what device you're accessing, whether it's through phone, tablet, desktop, your layout's probably going to look a little bit different. But right now the screen is being shared so you can see that PowerPoint. So hopefully you're getting the information. If not, let me know. But a little Zoom meeting etiquette, if you are not speaking, if you could mute your mic just so that we cut down as much background noise as possible, that would be fantastic. For those who are speaking, if you could announce your name just so we know who's making motions or things like that, that will be really helpful. And I think that's about all I have. If you have questions, certainly feel free to ask. This is a new uncharted territory that we are entering, so there's bound to be bumps and unknowns. So if you have questions, please let them be known.
I'm sorry, I haven't logged into the Civic site yet. I'm trying to figure that out. But go ahead.
You're okay for us to go without you, Alex?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Roll call. Myself, Kelly Strickland, present. Alex Zacharias.
Present. I'm present.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. As a heads up, while the PowerPoint is in view, I don't think everyone can see all the speakers. So you're going to have to give a verbal present versus a arm raise. Randy, Matt Buchanan.
Here.
Hutchison.
Present.
The liaisons, Beth Lemke.
Present.
Paul Grahl.
Present.
And Matt Vandenboomen.
Here.
Terrific. Next item is approval of the agenda for the April 22nd, 2020 meeting of the Green Bay Public Arts Commission.
Laura, did you actually have an item you wanted to add at this point, or was that just the informational ahead of time?
Ahead of time.
Okay.
No.
I move to approve the agenda.
Matt Buchanan, seconds.
I second. No, go ahead.
Motion from Kent, second from Matt Buchanan. Agenda is approved. No. Do we have to vote? Yes. All right. So a vote to approve the agenda for today's meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
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 What's the word? And those opposed. Great. Unanimous approval for our agenda. Great agenda preparation. And next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the January 22nd meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I move.
Alex, thank you. A second?
Kent, seconds approval.
Thank you, Kent. All in favor? Aye.
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 And opposed? Unanimous approval of the minutes from January 22nd, 2020. On to regular business. The item is consideration with possible action to determine whether to allow the current applicants for the alley transformation project to alter their designs for the boat art location to adhere to updated alley guidelines and or proceed in finding a new alley to house one of the proposed designs as currently presented. So, Laura, do you want to give us some context for this item?
Yeah, so we received 7 proposals for the boat art location. After sharing those proposals with DPW and WPS, they provided further information that it was strongly advised we should not have anything spanning the width of the alley for safety reasons in case there were any emergency repairs that needed to be performed on those electrical lines running through that alley specifically. So there is that runs down the length of it. And unfortunately, we did not know that we should not span the width of the alley, so that was not included in the proposal. So about 5 out of the 7 proposals are no longer within current standards that we have now. So with that unfortunate late coming information, we should I suggest either having all of the artists, if they are interested, on altering their application to better suit the needs of this alley, or have us find a new alley that does not require that restriction so that we can actually span the width of the alley.
This is Alex. I think it would be appropriate at least to give those artists an opportunity to revamp or, redesign, because it's not their fault. And I think they should get an opportunity.
Kent here. Can you clarify one point, Laura? Is it simply because of that one power line that's going down the middle there that DPW has a problem with spanning the alleyway? So if we could find an alleyway that doesn't have electrical wire spanning the distance there, then would that alleyway qualify for sculptural components that would span the alleyway?
There are a few other factors as far as it needs to meet our CD eligible requirements. So we need to have a certain amount of residential in my neighborhoods than if we do select a new alley. Staff has already been kind of looking at alternate options. So we do have a few alleys potentially staked out. With this alley, DPW and WPS aren't completely opposed to it. They would just strongly prefer we use a different alley, just for safety reasons in case they needed to do emergency repair work or anything like that.
Okay. I think finding a new alleyway would be a lot easier than asking to re-evaluate and remake their proposal. So I guess I would I don't know, can you make a motion on this? I'd make a motion well, first of all, let's look at the alternative options that you found. But that would be my suggestion, is that we move forward with the projects as is. And if there's another eligible location, then potentially we should pursue that rather than have the artists redo their.
Yeah, this is Kelly. I'm inclined to agree that that ask to kind of take additional funds out of the commission out of a potentially awarded commission to revamp the design seems somewhat onerous at this point. I've actually put an extraordinary amount of work into this. My second concern about altering the current designs is that those spanning components are really what make the installations impactful, and that to go to kind of a two-dimensional design is really, I think, not going to have the sort of potential positive impact that public art of this kind can have, especially in a neighborhood where we don't have a lot of foot traffic to begin with. I think that those three-dimensional items are really the kind of thing that you need in order to draw foot traffic, which seemed to be the primary goal of choosing this location in the first place. So I have a strong preference for an alternative location.
This is Alex. I didn't realize we actually have other alley options, so that makes a lot of sense.
This is Matt. I totally agree with those comments. The only thing I might say is the neighborhood, this particular neighborhood, is aware of this project, this proposal, and it's just such a bummer that we're going to have to relocate. So I guess what I would say is I would hope we could find a different project in the future to utilize this alley or this neighborhood, just to give that community some love, since we already went through this whole process.
Yeah, I hear
Ken's
you.
here. Yeah, that's a great point, especially if we've piqued the interest of the neighborhood there. It looks like that neighborhood, if we can't have items that traverse that gap, murals would be a really great option. Also, the relief piece that we have a few ideas coming in from these proposals, but murals would be perfect candidates for that wall space. Also, I got attending. Apparently, he's not on the commission anymore.
This is Matt here. The other thing, I agree with what everyone's talking about with the new location would not have us basically putting a governor on kind of the impact project. The only thing to watch out for is if we pick a new alleyway is 12 feet wide. If we find a new alley and it's say 14 feet wide, 16 feet wide, that's going to change the artist's budget and allotted materials that they probably have in their budgets. So those might have to be adjusted.
So Laura, as a part of kind of responding to these comments, what is the status of looking for an alternative location, and what are the timeline implications? Because I know that these funds have to be used by a certain time. So what's the logistical information that we don't have?
Basically this past week, staff had started scouting out new locations. We have 3 potentials, at least 2, whether or not they meet those CD eligible criteria, or even the measurements of it, or any of those details. Staff has basically been told, go out and find alleys. So that's where the scouting is at the moment. As far as the project timeline, the money still needs to be spent before November 1st. I know not all of the proposals listed out timelines, but a good share of them listed out timelines that I think we would still be able to meet that November deadline, as long as we were able to secure a location and select by next month, I would say.
Is it possible for you to identify the alternate locations, Laura?
The ones that we have scouted out so far, there's an alley at Greenwood and 9th. The alley that runs from Hotel Northland and the Pine Street parking ramp, the alley adjacent from that next to the YMCA. And then I also have the alley that runs along the river. Apparently that's a nasty alley. So that one isn't too high on the list.
And are all of the locations, are they free of wires and everything, and we could in fact span that that distance across?
I'm not sure on all of them. I know some of them have fire escapes located within there, so that creates a new obstacle to overcome. I'm not sure what that would all entail exactly, but I could reach out to probably DPW or the fire chief to see what that would entail.
So I guess, well, the first thing we need to determine is maybe this is a two-part action here. One, are we going to dismiss the idea of altering our current designs for the Bodart Alley and commit to the finding an alternative location? And Laura, just to put a little finer point on it, you have confidence that we can find another location that will work of the artists we have. I don't want to abandon our current alley if we're running any risk of not getting it done by the time the funds need to be utilized.
And I guess, is Cheryl on the call also? I'm going to take that as a no. Earlier this week, also is Celestine here, because she was in this conversation too, of briefly mentioning that we have more of that community development block grant money.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. We have more of that block grant money being allocated towards art projects. So there is the potential, if the commission is interested, utilizing funding for this alley and another alley, if that seems of interest. Because we do have, that is going to be allocated toward art. On timeline of when that money will be available to us or any of those details, I could get that information.
Laura, this is Matt Buchanan. Typically, I believe we get our next round of CDBG money in the fall, and then we would need to spend that by the very next fall. That's how it typically goes. I know we're getting some additional funds because of COVID, so that I'm pretty sure that has to be spent specifically on COVID-related activities, but generally speaking, I think we can assume probably this fall we'll be getting some more.
I'm not sure that changes my personal opinion about this particular project and the way we're dealing with these particular artists. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I still think we need to respect the work that has been done up until this point. And if we want to, you know, without knowing what the future holds, it seems I wouldn't feel great about going back to this batch of artists and saying, have another call that's going to fit the bill. So can we put a pin in all of your proposals and then put out a second call for two-dimensional work for the Bodart Alley? Is that your idea?
I'm in agreement with you. I think given the current situation and all of the incoming information, I think the most respectful and just fair way to go about this project is to secure a new alley that does allow the full span and go from there.
So do we do a motion to relocate for these projects? Is that we have to do a motion on that? If so, I motion.
Yeah, I guess that could be a motion. We'd have to refer that back to staff, I believe, and just, that would be our intention, is to move forward with the projects that we have now. Maybe use some time today to select the project. That's what we're all supposed to be doing today anyway. So, with the intent to put the selected project at a location that allows for a spannable entities. Does that sound about right, or?
I second.
I just want to mention the artists. I did notify the artists on the status of this alley, so they are aware of the spanning requirement and that the location might change. I haven't specifically heard back anything as far as their thoughts on what a new location might alter. I know Matt Van Den Boomen had kind of mentioned that depending on the new dimensions of the alley, that could drastically change budgets. I don't know if we have any artists that have joined our Zoom meeting this in the waiting room or anything like that. But if there is anyone who wants to speak, maybe we open the floor for them to have a chance to provide input.
I make a motion to open the floor if there's anybody here to speak.
Second.
You got to take a vote, Kelly.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the attendees. Can we get a vote to open the floor?
Aye.
Opposed? Are there any artists present? I don't see any in the participant list.
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
I still am not entirely clear how we're supposed to proceed, Laura, other than all agreeing that these projects are not suited to boat art. I think that we all agree upon. Is what is being asked of us to just choose a proposal that we like without knowing where it's going?
Oh, Kelly, you have to close the floor. We have to take a vote on closing the floor.
I apologize. A vote to close the floor.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So, okay. Going back to my previous question, I think we have consensus on the fact that we do not want to consider these proposals for Boat Art Alley. Is that something we should take a vote on?
Well, I think then you'd have to provide an outlet. So, I think we'd refer to staff to come up with a new location that's suitable for these existing art applications. But actually, I think we can still select a piece based on the intention to find a location that fits the parameters of the proposed pieces. Is that?
Yep. One question. Are the alleys, are each alley unique on as far as dimensions? Any alley, or is there, I'm just wondering, how is it extreme from one alley to the other, or so that we don't have to worry about this, or is it an actual issue?
I think they're all pretty close, but they do vary by several feet here and there, which, as Matt had pointed out, could change the cost. I don't think it would change it significantly, but it would, potentially change the metal costs for expanding, a foot or so. But I don't think the overall aesthetic would be all that altered. But I think if that is the case, we should be responsible for supplying that extra funding, since it was our mistake to move forward with this in the first place.
All right, well, let's take this in two parts. Perhaps we get a motion to defer the use of the Bodart Alley for this particular batch of proposals. That's thing one that we're trying to decide. Then we get a motion to ask staff for additional locations. Is that, or do we even need a motion for that? And then the third thing about trying to just choose a proposal without a location, I personally don't feel comfortable doing that. It kind of goes against everything I have ever learned about public art. But if the rest of the commission wants to kind of move forward with that, I will stay a quiet minority.
Well, I think if that's the case, then we are asking the artists to reevaluate their applications. If we're gonna make sure that the site, they have to consider the site for their projects, and we don't want to move forward with one of these projects, then we are asking the artists to reevaluate their applications.
Yeah, I think as long as we don't find basically a 1-for-1 fit from one alley to the next one, the projects are going to have to be adjusted in some way. Like even if the neighboring buildings are 1 story and the other side is 4 stories, like it's a different environment.
And to be clear, I'm not even talking about technical specifications. I'm talking about what's appropriate for a community, what a community needs, the tone, foot traffic, the surrounding businesses. I mean, I'm not really talking about the logistics of it.
Yeah, I think as an artist, if you're giving me a whole new canvas, it's like, okay, well, let me go look at it. There might be other inspirations or additions or subtractions. So, yeah.
Laura, you had mentioned that CBW is not 100% against this location. I mean, what we're talking about is an overhaul of this call. Then, if we don't, in fact, choose the Bodart, like, what is the wiggle room there? Like, is it possible to just say, well, we hear that, in the future, you'd rather that we didn't make it in, alleys that have entities that span. We could definitely follow, but we've done all this work. Let's just move forward with it on Bodart. Is that an option?
It's an option. I wouldn't say it's a good option. They basically said that if we do build something in this alley, that we'd have to figure out permissions of if they needed to get in there with their boom lifts or other things like that to do maintenance, that they would have the ability to dismantle it if need be, which for the amount of money we're putting into this project, I don't think we want just anyone to dismantle it if need be.
I'm looking at the other locations on Google Earth, and both of the ones by Northland have things that looks like telephone poles and wires that are there. I think it's going to be difficult to find a place that we can, in fact, span the alleyway. It might be good for us to suggest just keeping it there, and if they have to dismantle it, then okay. But I don't know if we're going to have a better option to go back to the artist and say, look, sorry, we didn't foresee this happening, and ask them to redo their applications to a new site. I might be in favor of just, moving forward with this location.
I guess, is that true, Laura? I know, when we talked about this ahead of time, my biggest concern, obviously we need to solve the issue of this particular project, but my biggest concern is moving forward. I mean, one, how do we make sure that we get complete information from the folks that we need to about what the limitations on the installation can be to avoid this, but also, Yeah, is Kent right? I mean, is an alleyway free of utility equipment a unicorn? Because to never have three components to these projects seems like weak sauce.
I think making a decision based on speculations right now isn't our best interest.
Laura, what is your preferred way forward? What do you see as being the most effective way forward?
That's a good question. They're above everything. I mean, I want to be respectful of the artists that put in the time and money and energy into these proposals. I mean, they're really solid projects, and I'm torn because the boat art location it's within the arts district. It's an area that could use some attention and some love, and a project like this would be an amazing addition to that district. And I've brought up Robert's email. I'll read it off for you. Robert is with WPS. It reads, Laura, I'm not as worried about the planned work as we could work with you to get them removed for our work. It's more the emergency work that could happen at any time of the day or night. We cannot remove the stuff if it would have to be someone else from the city. That would mean someone with us at any time to remove the artwork. Also worried if that line breaks and falls, it will energize these items. That could create a very unsafe situation. I'm still voting for a different alley. If that is not your decision in the end, I will work with you on required distances from our lines so that installation is not in our safe zone. So
it sounds to me like Robert seems to think that this alley is particularly problematic. I mean, I don't hear him saying like, every alley in our city is going to pose this problem. He seems to be suggesting that there are other alleyways from his perspective and access to equipment that are better suited for this kind of installation.
Actually, just looking at the alley between the Northland and the parking ramp, there's already a pedestrian bridge that spans that alley. And I don't see any electrical, I don't see any utilities. So that might be a great candidate. Thank you, Kent.
That is the one I'm currently looking at too. A little more narrow than the other one, but potentially. Okay, this is a good question. Let's say we did decide to choose that location, then what would be the next step?
Like I get buy-in from the businesses and the property owners.
We need buy-in. We need to change or ask the artists to readapt their concept or to create a new concept. I mean, I think, going a different location is if you want to make it, as you said, Kelly, like, site specific that, evaluate all these different, which I agree with, like that's something you want to do with the neighborhood, evaluate their needs. Those all send different messages to the artists in their creative process. So, do we recall or do we just try to adopt applicants to this location then?
Or do we leave that up to the artist?
That's right. Right. I mean, I think once we have another location secured, if we go back to them and say, this is the new location, based on that information, are there any alterations you want to make? They may say, no, I want to roll with it. In which case we proceed. So the question becomes, Laura, and I think this was my question from the beginning, do we really think we can get another approved location in a timeline to execute this by November?
Should we do a motion to just first eliminate boat art so we don't talk about it anymore?
No, I think we should keep it on the table at this point, but that was a good question. Is this possible, Laura?
I think, and I'm hoping Celestine can add to this also, but with the location you're looking at specifically between Hotel Northland and the Pine Street parking ramp, the parking ramp is city property. That would be permission from DPW, and we would need to coordinate with Hotel Northland. I have no idea how willing they would be with something like this. With it being a historic property, I know that would alter, like, there would be no option of murals or painting or any of that. Is Celestine on, and could you?
Yeah, I sure am. I'm here.
Okay.
So what specifically would you like me to, I mean, seems like there's a lot of issues and some good conversation. What would you like me to elucidate?
Do you feel that if we switch gears and focus our energy on securing this alley between Hotel Northland and Pine Street parking ramp, are we going to be successful in those efforts, or are we going to receive pushback potentially on receiving approval?
Well, I think I do not have a crystal ball. So I can't, I'm outside taking a walk. It was a late night last night. So I can't really say. I do understand that the parameters that Laura was given in the beginning seem to not be full parameters. And so that's why we are where we are. Some of the pieces that were submitted actually would fit in to the parameters that were later clarified. I will say, though, that, especially I was taking a walk, in the downtown area, coming by that alley that is right next to RE, like in between RE and Exclusive Company, and then where the mural is. A lot of our alleys, a lot of them. And so I think the elements that really appealed to the commission, and quite frankly, appealed to, I think, a lot of people in terms of transforming a place, are those elements that span overhead, right? And a lot of our alleys have electrical things in them. So I think it's going to be a challenge no matter where we go. I think that, to marry the functionality of an alley with the transformative element of going overhead. And, part of the reason why this is back at commission is because it was important to give the artists an opportunity, or at least for you to discuss whether or not they should have another opportunity to submit another plan given the clarified constraints, which are many. So I think that there is, boat art is a great place. Murals are beautiful, but they don't quite add to the, as I said, the transformative character that you're looking for. And so I think it's really important to dip in again and ask the question of staff in a different way. Which alleys would you choose? Which is not a question we asked. So hopefully that answers your question, Laura.
Well, I think the question that we asked was, we were given 3 alleyways, right? So I guess that's signaled to me that those seemed like good options to the staff. That being Greenway and 9th, the alley along the Riverwalk, which maybe got a thumbs down as it was being described.
Yeah,
And then-
that is a working alley. But you mean right behind the riverfront lofts, Laura? Is that the one?
Yes.
Yeah, that is it's ugly. It needs transformation, but that would be hard to do. Continue, Kelly.
So we've got Greenway and 9th, and then this alley between Pine Street parking and Hotel Northland.
Right.
We've determined that the alley between Pine Street and Hotel Northland does not have the encumbrances, the utility encumbrances. But perhaps what I'm hearing you say is that, and I can see why, that is not necessarily an alleyway that begs this kind of energy and investment.
Mm-hmm. And Laura, can you just describe for the commission who came up with those other two alleys?
That was discussed during our neighborhood meeting, which is made up of community and economic development staff.
Right. And so, Kelly, I think to your question, that those would still need to go through DPW and WPS because there's this technical aspect to it. Like I said, we had some parameters that were later clarified.
I don't know. I mean, my feeling is we have some really strong proposals here that people have put a great deal of work into, that if another alleyway can be identified, and then permission got received from the artist to proceed with these proposals in a different location, that's honor the work that's been done. I still don't have a sense from Laura if she feels confident that we can do this in the timeline we have.
Sorry, I was writing down notes.
Because ultimately it sounds to me like nothing, we can't put anything in the Bodart Alley but murals. That's kind of what it comes down to. And if this town knows how to do anything, it's how to pull together a bunch of proposals for murals. I just feel like that's something that can be done with fewer dollars and more quickly, if that's all that can go there on Bodart.
Well, again, those were recommendations for that location on Bodart, according to that email. Sounds like they're willing to work with us. They'd rather not, but maybe this would demonstrate their flexibility in moving forward to have our, entities within our municipality demonstrate flexibility to have vision and to work with artist vision. So, I think we should pursue this Bodart location with the sculpture ideas that we currently have.
I honestly have some serious reservations with that, unfortunately, just because of the emergency component that WPS had expressed. If there's, a storm and some power lines come down and that electrifies that artwork, I mean, that could be a real dangerous situation. I think we should try to avoid that if we can.
I agree with that. I think what might be a good step moving forward is to set a timeline for finalizing an alternate location, perhaps within 2 weeks, to secure a new location. And if that is not, if that isn't achieved at that time, look at see if the artists are open to adjusting proposals to better suit the Bodart location.
So essentially you would let us know in a couple of weeks if you were able to confirm another location?
Yes.
Okay. Do we need to have any conversation about that before we start making motions?
Well, before we do that, like, so Matt would be against the boat out location. I mean, I'm looking at all these other video or pictures of communities that have, big sculptures in their alleyways with, power lines and all kinds of other obstructions. I think we need to step up. Green Bay needs to accept and have a stronger vision for what our art can look like, our public art, and how we support our artists. So I think this is a way that we could potentially do that. I'd be in favor of trying to make this work at this location. Maybe having more. Kelly and Alex, do you have feedback? Or Matt or Beth?
This is Alex. I'm always, whenever we do a production of any sort, safety first. So that's the number one rule. I don't know. I don't know how dangerous it would be to put artwork there or not. If that's valid, then that's something we should consider. But at the same time, I'm torn because I'm an artist as well, and I would love to see something up there like this there as well. So I'm torn.
I guess I'm with you, Ken. Right? That ultimately we will have our civic partners aspirational and ambitious around and imaginative around these kinds of things. My feeling from hearing Laura read that email is that this is not the project. We're not going to go into this with a spirit from both parties. I just feel like, okay, now they better understand how evaluating a place ahead of time impacts the kind of work they're going to get, right? So I do this as a learning opportunity for kind of both sides, right? This is the first time we're looking at an installment of this nature. This is the first time that Laura has learned that there are these other considerations that might come up. This is the first time the WPS says, oh gosh, it didn't occur to us that they would try to do that. I see it as just the beginning of the collaboration, and to go back and say, no, on this one, we really want to span the alleyway is not the way to develop the collaboration. But I'm kind of, yeah, that's my take on this particular project. But I agree with you in spirit, Kent, right? That we want to kind of bring everyone along in terms of the, like, no, you guys, let's do something big and exciting and transformational. And that just putting up mural after mural isn't going to achieve that, even though it would be easiest for WPS.
So I'm wondering if we should have the artists chime in. I mean, they might say, well, wait a minute, we're resilient as artists. We adjust better. So I'm wondering, even that conversation is, this is a situation we're in. What do you think? And then is it worth hearing their responses? But
I think we have to, if we were to do that, Alex, we have to be asking them exactly what we need from them. And we don't know that yet. I feel like we have to at least try to find a location where these proposals would work. And then if we want to go back and do an either or, then so be it. That's on the artist. But I feel like we've asked for these proposals. We have these proposals. The onus is upon us to find a place we can put them.
Kent here. So I'm in favor of, doing whatever it takes to get this project done. I'm just also in favor of putting the artists in the best possible, position of success, where they're not continually having to do more and more work because of our shortcomings as, not providing the right information. And you're right, there was a miscommunication. It sounds like faulty information was in the first place, and then having to, revamp that later because, it's just like, yeah, as an applied artist, I would be a little peeved about this.
And I've heard back from not all artists, but one artist that certainly doesn't encompass the entire group, but I did hear back from one artist saying that in their opinion, the fairest way to go forward would be to new alley that their concepts could be translated to. So that isn't an umbrella over all of them, but that's just one opinion that I have heard from one of the artists that has put time and energy towards this project already.
Laura, my personal opinion is that I would like to take a swing at finding a second location. And if you think if 2 weeks is an appropriate time to try to rustle up some input from appropriate people on staff and, business owners, I would like to try. That's my personal opinion.
I agree. I don't think 2 weeks is going to set back the project so that it isn't achievable before November. And I think within 2 weeks' time, we'll be able to get a clear vision on whether this Hotel Northland alley is a good option or if another alley presents itself that could be a good replacement.
Okay, so I think really all we need is a motion then to defer this decision and seek additional locations, potential additional locations. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say so.
Matt Buchanan is nodding, so.
Just a couple of logistical questions too, because I don't disagree. I think trying to find another appropriate location that would encompass this, then the artists can all say, okay, either this is a good fit or not. The only concern I have is when I read through the proposals, I kind of got that there was some mixed, I don't want to call it mixed media, but like if there's going to be any other restrictions to a new site, we have to be clear and consistent on that. I do believe if I remember the proposals, I was trying to figure out again how they were going to adhere, or there was one that had mural plus span, I think. So making sure that whatever entity we're asking in that partnership, they're very clear. So the artists have that clearness of it. And then the question I would have for this particular, going back to the boat art location, that email that was read, Laura, it's really about the span, correct? Versus adhering to the two buildings independently. So you could still have 3-dimension, perhaps because there wasn't an issue perhaps with the clearance of going through, like a vehicle going through. It was really more the maintenance of the overhead wires. Did I not hear that correctly?
No, I think that was my interpretation as well, Beth.
Okay. So if indeed there is funding for 2 locations and we have this pool of 7 applicants, clearly some can't work with boat art, but there might be. So I just want to make sure that, when we're ranking them or looking at them, because I had a hard time doing that, knowing the location, going, how's that going to work? If you can secure the second location within 2 weeks and then know that there's this potential second piece or being able to go back, making sure that we're just clear with the artists and the proposal and the public. So I don't know if that's all achievable because there's a lot of hoops to jump through, but that's kind of my take on things.
Anyone else with input before we get a motion? I don't don't even know if do we need a motion for this if all we're doing is waiting a couple more weeks?
It's Beth again. Wouldn't you be directing staff to secure a second location? Or no?
Yes, you do. It's an action item, so you need a motion. That is accurate.
Thank you, Celestine. Can I get a motion to defer any decision on this while staff investigates additional locations, and we're shooting for a 2-week window?
So moved.
Motion. Or second.
Motion from Matt Buchanan, second from Alex Zacharias. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear it, but so I'll abstain.
Okay. Opposed? And abstaining. That's Kent. So we're clear on what we're doing, Laura?
Yes, if I don't have a location before 2 weeks, at that time, are we going to go back to boat art since we have permission already and see if artists are interested in altering their designs and or just moving forward and working with WPS to make the designs as safe as they can be within that restricted location?
Well, our only other alternative would be to bag the entire project, right?
Yeah,
I don't think anyone wants to do that.
definitely not.
Okay. Chairperson's report and project updates. This was, I only had 2 points, and one is probably sort of obvious, but it came out of my discussion with Laura about this, that perhaps there's no other way to do it other than these kinds of conversations, but that we need to get better at kind of understanding the physical space before we do calls and understanding, the broad network of people that those need to come from. But I agree. I don't want to lose sight of something that Kent said earlier, that we do have to kind of bring partners along on this, and that through good conversation. And I think people understanding and seeing and experiencing the impact of the work, minds will be changed. But I don't think the answer should always be like, well, it's not going to work, moving on. But I don't know. There was a time limitation on this one. I know that kind of contributed to it, but that was something that Laura and I talked about at length, like how are we going to go about making sure that we have kind of more robust understanding of limitations on space. And then also how are we kind of bringing utilities and other folks along with us to be imaginative and really utilize the resources that the artists bring to our community without, dismissing out of hand. And the other thing is that Laura and I talked about is now that, and who knows, with COVID, the whole world it's all different now. But it occurred to me in the bylaws for the Friends organization, there doesn't seem to be any language on who makes determination for utilization of those funds. I think that we talked about it very briefly, and this is not something that needs to happen immediately, but at some point, I do think the bylaws need to have some kind of directive about how the utilization of unrestricted gifts gets used out of that fund. And I only raise that as from personal experience working with a governmental entity, with a friends organization, that real clear language on that can be helpful and avoid problems in the future. Those are my only 2 items. Laura, your report and project updates? Or does anyone have any questions or comments?
So for my project, things are a little bit different. I'm sure everyone's experiencing quite the upheaval in daily life. But something that we are still working on is moving forward with Make Music Day, which is going to take place June 21st. So we're working with Mosaic Arts and Art Garage, Downtown Green Bay, and a lot of other players at the table on developing, hopefully, ideally, at that time, we won't be sheltering in place anymore. We'll be able to somewhat gather and have more events. But at this time, we're planning on safe options to still celebrate Make Music Day. So if anyone is interested in joining in on those conversations, I can include you in on our Zoom meetings. And then also, I just wanted to introduce you to our spring intern. She started in January, but we haven't had a chance to meet. So I'm hoping that she is here with us. Hopefully it's not too boring for her. But Nicole has been working on developing a lookbook for us, which essentially will be used when we work with developers for our Percent for Art funding. Idea book, basically, so that we don't just end up with murals or a lone sculpture. It's kind of a resource that we can use to show developers what they might be able to make possible in their development, whether that's artistic seating or some sort of transformative garden or other ways that they can really just incorporate art throughout their project. So she's been working on that, and she's fantastic, but I can stop talking if Nicole wants to say anything.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I appreciate that, Laura. This was an interesting meeting. I've never really been involved in something like this, so I just kind of sat back and took notes. So I don't know. Thanks for letting me join in. That's all.
Welcome, Laura. Nicole, sorry. I'm looking at Laura's name. Welcome, Nicole. And thank you for everything you're doing.
Yeah, she's definitely killing it. We've been playing around with a few other ideas for things that she could focus on with her last few weeks here with us before she graduates. But some of that might be pursuing further research into developing art apps that we might add to our portfolio. And she's also just going to kind of be researching some other public art topics that kind of pique her interest. But she's doing a fantastic job, and I'm so thankful that she's here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I have a follow-up. Did you call that an idea book, Laura?
Yeah, basically it's a lookbook. So it lists out
Lookbook.
different topics, whether that's bridge enhancements, and then it lists several images of different ways that you could enhance or
That's a really fantastic idea, and it might be a good idea to reach out to our body of artists to contribute to that. And it might, a $50 to $100 stipend just for ideas. It's something that I've played a role in the past with other communities, and it's a cheap way to generate a lot of external ideas for site-specific things. So I know that's probably not going to fit into your schedule, Nicole, because it sounds like you're on your way out. Is that right?
Yes, this is Nicole.
Okay. Yeah. So, but getting this ball rolling, I think, is a really great idea. I'm happy you guys are working on that. Thank you for your work.
I'd like to add for any kind of because we're never going to go back to normal, and I'm going to call this the Ken effect. We got to push the envelope, maybe ruffle some feathers. It's okay to do that. It's, you know, as artists, that's what we're made to do, is to push the envelope. So we'll call that the Ken effect. And, you know, I think from here on, I think virtual, I think this is an opportunity. I think the virtual component should be used as a tool, as a possibility in the future. Rather than wait for things to get back in order, let's just assume it's not going to go back in order. And how do we utilize this virtual tool for future endeavors as well?
That's all I had for my coordinator's report.
Okay, thank you. Financial report.
Yes. So basically the only things that have changed, and I'm hoping Stephanie, our accountant, is also on here in case I just completely murder any information. I just saw Paul in the chat. Yep, I can include you in the Make Music Day information as well. The only changes in our financial report is our CD. My salary has been taken out from that, but we do have our allocations for our sidewalks still, which is kind of carried over from last fall when it became so rainy. We weren't able to stamp those. So we'll sidewalk stamps yet this year as well.
Any questions on financials? I think to Laura's point, they look nearly identical to what we saw at our last meeting. All right, final item is that our next meeting is Wednesday, May 27th.
I'm guessing this will change since we have that incoming, hopefully secured location within 2 weeks. I don't know. I'm assuming we have to make a motion to, do we have to make a motion to schedule a special meeting, or is that just something that if we agree on it, we will schedule a special meeting?
I think you have the power to do that.
Yeah,
Laura.
we don't need a motion. We just need
I have
to.
the power?
You have the power. We just
That
have to
is-
notice the public is all.
Okay. Well, stay tuned. If that changes, it'll probably be within 2 weeks. Is there a preference? Just offhand, otherwise we can communicate this through email also. If you can, I can send out a doodle poll.
This time is good. I mean, the 8 a.m. in general is good for me.
Me as well. Well, yes, it's fine.
Okay.
And I wouldn't mind most future meetings to be via virtual as well. I mean,
Okay, then may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, made by
Okay.
Kent.
Made by Matt.
All in favor?
aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, meeting adjourned.